Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Finance Musings. I'm very excited. I'm going to be covering a company and a brand that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is Dunkin' Donuts. And I promise you, if you stay to the end and watch the entire video, you're going to learn how you can get a free donut for free. So just a little warning here, constant mention of Dunkin' may trigger your appetite and your cravings for a donut, so watch out. So I just want you to think for a second, guys. Close your eyes and imagine a world with no coffee, right? You wake up, you're tired, you got a long day, and there's no coffee there, right? It's horrifying. It's crazy because people run on caffeine, and I'm not exaggerating that one bit, right? Because Dunkin' Donuts sells about, I think, 60 cups of coffee a second. And if you extrapolate that out, that's about 2 billion cups of coffee a year. And that is a lot of coffee, and I definitely contribute to that, right? And Dunkin' is doing a very noble deed indeed, right? So that slogan, America runs on Dunkin', is 100% true. They serve people coffee to wake up to their, to wake their brains up and start their day. But what's interesting is obviously for Dunkin', their primary product is not coffee, right? It's their mouth-watering donuts. So in today's video, I'm going to cover some exciting information about Dunkin', origin story, like I said, their brand, how they rose to prominence, some of their strengths, their weaknesses, how their franchisees are doing, scaling, and all that fun stuff. So let's get right into it. How and when was Dunkin' Donuts established? So Dunkin' Donuts was actually called Open Kettle, and it was founded by a guy named Bill Rosenberg. And Bill has a great story, right? So Bill, modest family, typical of how these stories are, right? Of these great companies, a modest family, limited resources to really meet ends. So when he was in middle school, he dropped out to help his family financially by working, and he just worked odd jobs to survive. And it wasn't until he was 17 when he started driving an ice cream truck. And by 20, he was doing so well, the ice cream truck made him a manager by the time he was 20. Now, it was during this time, during World War II, when Bill was working at a shipyard, right? It was Quincy Shipyards is what it was called. And this is where it gets interesting, right? He observed that workers had minimal options for lunch, and that's when an idea struck his mind. But it wasn't Dunkin' Donuts, not yet at least, right? So what Bill did is he borrowed some money and resources to open his venture, which was called Industrial Luncheon Services, right? Very creative. And he used old trucks to sell workers coffee, donuts, and other snacks. And if I think about it, this might be the first concept of like a food truck now that I'm thinking about it. And essentially realize, hey, these people work at these warehouses, they don't have options for lunch. Let me just drive around and sell them coffees and snacks and things like that. Let's fast forward to 1948. It's at this time when he realized half of his business was coming from selling two things, donuts and coffees. So he opened a cafe named Open Kettle where he sold both of these two items, right? It was coffee and donuts, simple. And it wasn't until 2 years later in 1950 that Open Kettle was renamed to Dunkin' Donuts. And I want you to think about that, Dunkin' Donuts, right? Now, about that name, funny enough, Bill observed his customers literally dunking donuts. I should have had a donut for this video, right? Dunking donuts in their coffee, and that's how he came up with that name. It's pretty clever, actually. I got to give him credit for that. So Bill started with a food truck, just one shop to sell his donuts, and from those humble beginnings, I want you guys to venture and guess how many branches Dunkin' Donuts has right now. It's a lot. So current state of the Dunkin' Donuts franchise and what their legacy is, right? So do you think, anytime things like this start, do you think Bill even had any idea about the immense success that Dunkin' would have, born out of his first venture at Quincy Shipyards when he was just selling coffee and snacks to these workers from his truck, right? Dunkin' now is not only just famous in America, but globally as well. And according to Dunkin' Donuts, they have over 12,900 branches worldwide. And of those, roughly 8,500 are spread across America in 41 of 52 states. That number may have changed at the time of whenever you're watching this video. And the remaining stores are located across 45 countries. So let's dig into what does a business look like for Dunkin' Donuts, what their earnings are and, annual revenue. So this is where it's interesting is that they serve approximately 3 million customers a day. Annual sales revenue, like store-wide, if you count all their franchisees, are several billion dollars a year. And if you think about what the average per store revenue is, it's roughly $600,000 to $1.3 million per year. So that's the per store number. And again, that number varies, store, location, foot traffic, all that good stuff. So yes, this popular Dunkin' Donuts franchise that Bill started is now earning billions of dollars. And it's one of the top brands too, right? It's very recognizable, a lot of brand power. So That leads me to my next point. As I was thinking about Dunkin, is this fascinating question is that, will Dunkin continue its supremacy? So obviously Dunkin' Donuts immensely successful in the 90s. It was one of the first places that you could not only get donuts and coffee, but other snacks. So my favorite thing at Dunkin' Donuts was croissant, egg, and cheese. I feasted on their croissant, egg, and cheese. You get bagels, and now they have all sort of fancy sandwiches and frozen beverages. However, it's 2022 and things have changed. Now Dunkin' Donuts has plenty of competitors in the marketplace, plenty of which you probably go to, right? Starbucks, Krispy Kreme, Cheesecake Factory, Pete's Coffee, Tim Hortons, Dutch Bros, Black Rifle Coffee Company, McDonald's, Burger King, even Taco Bell. And the switching costs aren't necessarily that high for coffee, right? For some people, coffee is coffee for the majority of people. So if you can stop at a Burger King or Tim Hortons, you're going to get your coffee and you're going to get your egg sandwich, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be from Dunkin' unless you're a fanatic, you're an aficionado for a certain brand. The switching costs for the consumer aren't necessarily that high. So the one thing is that a lot of these franchisees also have international brands and they sell similar products to Dunkin' Donuts, like I just said. And Starbucks is one of their biggest competitors. And moreover, Starbucks has, even more national and international branches than Dunkin' Donuts. And, when you think about it from a business perspective for any company, revenue growth is number one, top line sales growth. So for Starbucks, it's literally, hey, we have more footprint. We're keeping the same level of customer attraction. So we're going to get the same foot traffic that we can assume at these stores. It means more top line sales growth and more revenue growth in theory. As long as you have your fixed cost held, it means more cash flow. More cash flow means more growth, right? At least in theory. And also you may have noticed that Starbucks menu is way more extensive than Dunkin's. You can customize anything that you can imagine, and they have a really good way of connecting with customers. If Starbucks, when you go, they always ask your name and they put it on the cup, which is a nice way to connect with them. So Starbucks revenue is several times more on a multiple basis than what Dunkin' Donuts store-wide is generating. But the one thing that Dunkin' does has as an advantage over Starbucks that, and maybe even some of their competitors, is very competitive pricing and a better control over its margins, which is something you'll see a lot of operators talk about as well. So its donuts, its coffees, and other baked items are more reasonably priced than other brands. So luckily for us, even with all these competitors, I don't think my beloved Dunkin' is going to be going anywhere. So now thinking ahead about the business, is Dunkin's strategy to just expand footprint to counter Starbucks? Because where else and how else will sales growth come from, right? That top line revenue growth. And additionally, is being competitive on a price basis enough for any brand to survive in a highly competitive market? Because you can only compete on price for so long. So speaking to that, and their dominance in the market, let's kind of pivot to significant factors that have helped Dunkin' maintain its supremacy in the market. So few factors right behind their success, right? Global branches. So like I said, Dunkin' doesn't just serve, they're not just US based. They have plenty of franchisees worldwide, diverse customer base. Again, you have coffee, donuts, and snacks. And again, like I said, 12,900, I think in 45 countries. And I really think having a global footprint has helped, because now wherever you go in the continental United States, you see a strong brand, you're going to go there. Number two, I think branding and what they do with their menu is really interesting. When you look at something like a Taco Bell, this is what Dunkin' Donuts does well too. They just didn't stick to their menu from prior, yesteryears, right? They keep updating the menu. They do a lot of control group testing. They bring in a wide variety of donuts and frozen drinks. The frozen matcha latte is my favorite, and sandwiches for the customers too, right? I think it's one of the biggest secrets why Dunkin' Donuts is never out of the game, because you're constantly refreshing your menu. You're giving your customers something else to try. Now, moving on, a third reason, something that Dunkin' has tried. I know a lot of brands are trying this right now, but I feel like Dunkin' is actually making a concentrated effort, which is more eco-friendly policies. Brands, whether nothing against them, but they contribute to pollution, environmental issues, plastic waste, packaging, paper, so on and so forth. But Dunkin' is doing a lot of things to be more friendly to the environment. For example, they're serving their coffee in these better paper cups to reduce its carbon footprint. And then the other thing that I really appreciate is that that's something that they're transparent about, and they're actually trying and acknowledging that, hey, we have to do better because we're selling billions of products a year. where's that waste going? What can we do about that? So I think that is important, and customers do care about that. And the last thing that I think is really interesting is that they are creating special donuts for different countries. So they've actually launched unique flavors to adapt to the local cuisine, which is pretty neat. So, they have donuts specific to Asian countries. For example, in China, they introduced a dried pork and seaweed donut, which I would love to try. I don't know what that tastes like. Curious to try it. And then another thing is that they introduced a wasabi cheese and seaweed cheese donut in Singapore. I think that's really, really interesting. So again, talked glowingly about Dunkin' and what they're doing well in terms of footprint, a wide menu. They're competing on price, lower priced options compared to their competitors. But just like any company, Dunkin' has weaknesses, and here are a few big ones for Dunkin', right? One is I think they are significantly reliant on the US market. They're an international franchise, but as of 2019, roughly 50% of the total revenue was generated within US branches. And if the dynamics of the American economy change, Dunkin' would be severely affected, right? Maybe there's another pandemic or some food issue or whatever, and FDA gets involved and Dunkin' can't do anything for a while. It would significantly hamper a lot of these franchisees, right? So I think differentiating their sales growth trajectory could go a long way in helping Dunkin' brands be less resilient in the US market. The second weakness of Dunkin' that could result in lower top line sales growth is losing its market share. And how that could happen is them expanding more slowly than their competitors, right? You look at Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, they have plenty of branches, across corners of the world. But the lack of Dunkin's expansion out the US is happening at a much lower rate than its competitors. And this slower growth rate does give their competitors a chance to capture market share in other places, build a relationship with customers in international markets. And then it just gets kind of harder for when you do get to that location, and there's switching costs, there's brand affinity, it's a lot harder to do. So, and now the third part is issues that they've had when they've tried to expand. Interesting stories about when they tried to grow in India. They had to end up closing a lot of stores in India because of price, right? A lot of their stuff was priced equivalent to like a daily salary for a worker. So you're not going to go buy an item from Dunkin' Donuts when you're making that much in a day, right? So I think Dunkin' does need to figure out what they do internationally to help them drive top line growth. Now, understand that, when you think about the operating leverage, your fixed versus variable cost, obviously you want to get a handle on that, and that comes over time. But if you're focused on growth, you need to be able to say, hey, what are our fixed costs that we can manage by opening in a new territory? But then once those fixed costs kind of get taken care of, everything after that is just pure profit, right? Obviously in a place, something with like Dunkin' is like your fixed costs are kind of your ongoing overhead, employees, things like that, and what have you, and your franchise fees and what have you. But again, is that's what they need to think about. So again, with that being said, I think luckily for Dunkin', there are plenty of fans worldwide, including myself. I don't think they're going to be going away anytime, anywhere soon. So I think, again, everything's about customer satisfaction. So as long as customers keep going back and keeping the business alive and running, they will be fine. And it's because people love Dunkin' Donuts, right? Like I said, the variety of donuts is unmatched. They have over 50 flavors, and they have seasonal flavors too. Whatever flavor you want. My favorite is vanilla frosted with sprinkles. Second, the prices are unbeatable. I mean, you go to Starbucks and you go to Dunkin' Donuts, Dunkin' will always, pound for pound be better at a price level. And they pretty much have a very similar menu in terms of, lattes and things like that. Yeah, Starbucks, you can customize certain things, but for a price point, Dunkin' Donuts does win when you do a head-to-head. And like any other, it's something that I think Dunkin' did really well that I like, is that Dunkin' has a something called the DD Smart, which is essentially for folks who are looking for, who are health conscious. Let's say you're an athlete, you track your macros, what have you. They have items that are less than 400 calories, right? So again, you can now eat healthy things off of Dunkin' Donuts, right? Within moderation. And the other reason is, like I said, they give free donuts. That's right. Free donuts, guys. We were at the end of the video. I'd say how you'd get it. So when you buy something at Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm pretty sure there's like at any time, so even if you watch this video 5 years from now, it should be good, is that at the bottom of every receipt, there's always those online surveys. And I know you just want to throw them out, but if you finish a survey, they'll give you a barcode, or you'll get a code that you can use. So next time you go and you buy any beverage, you'll get a donut free for that. So don't throw away your receipt. Those surveys look annoying, but they're not. Do the survey. So look, with that being said, I think it's crazy that in a food truck service started by Bill turned into a quite large business worldwide. And I think this story of Dunkin' Donuts is genuinely inspiring. I think it's truly the American story. You know, a man from a modest background, a high school dropout, paved the way for establishing one of the most all-time popular food chains. You know, and I'd love to know, what are your thoughts on Dunkin' Donuts? What's your favorite drinking donut? Like I said, for me, it's the matcha latte, and it's the vanilla frosted tied with glaze and croissant, egg and cheese. So I named like 3 things, which is fine. So you can comment that too, right? But anyway, guys, look, if you guys like this video, the little overview and breakdown of Dunkin' Donuts, please go ahead and smash the like button. I hate asking for you guys to do it, but it really helps. It would mean a lot to me. And if you guys really enjoy this video and want to see more videos about me talking about companies and stocks, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon, turn on the notifications. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace.